Okay, for milestone 2, you have created the menu item class. So menu item class is going to essentially be what a menu is made up of. That's what we call a composition. So what happens is that your menu is made up of menu items. Okay? Now, the very first thing you need to do is to modify your menu item class. First of all, your menu item should be fully private, which means you are not going to have any public thing in it. When it's fully private, even the constructor becomes private. Therefore, no class can instantiate it. To accomplish this, to be able to make menu item only accessible to menu, what you need to do is to have a forward declaration at the top of the menu class. Forward declaration is essentially writing class menu at the top. Forward declaration is exactly like a prototype for a function, but it's for a class. When you have a function, you want the function to be accessible somewhere, you write its prototype, right? Are you guys okay back there? Everything's good? All right. Okay, yeah. So what you do at the top of your file above menu item class, you will write class menu semicolon. That tells to the coming code that there is a class menu that is going to come later. Like this, you can befriend the menu to menu item. Essentially, make menu item a menu a friend of menu item. This is the only case that you are supposed to use friends. Friends are not supposed to be used for methods. That means you didn't design your code properly, because you could have had a query, and a query could be called in a friend function. So functions never need to be friends. But when you want to apply ownership, which saying a menu owns its menu items, that's how you make it a friend. So inside the menu item class, you will add one statement that says friend class menu, which means menu has full access to your menu item. Then you start coding. Okay? So this is the modification that you're going to do to your menu item class. So you're going to have 3 attributes to track the indentation, number of indentations, because menu items can indent, right? You can have sub-menu items. You need to have the indentation number, how many indentations you have, and you need to have the size of each indentation, 3, 4, how much it's going to be. So I want it indented 3 times, and because my indentation size is 4, I need to go 12 characters further, something like that. So these 2 numbers are going to hold that. And also, you need to have one integer holding the number of menu items added to menu. Okay? So that's that. So because you need to know how many menu items you have in there. You have 3 permanent menu items in your menu apart from the series of menu items that can be added to a menu. So a menu can have many things. In our case, it's going to be for restaurant. You can have over there, I don't know, Pepsi, Coke, beer, wine. These are the things that can change. You can add to a menu. But a menu, when it comes to being, will have 3 menu items. The first one is the title, because a menu needs a title at the top. That's a menu item too. The other one is going to be the exit option, like when you have exit, what you want to say over there at the bottom. And finally, there is a prompt at the bottom that user is supposed to enter their information. These 3 are menu items. So you need to have 3 permanent menu items, and you need to initialize them in the constructor in the order you create them. So, and I'm saying the row number of the exit option should be set to 0. So you have to always remember, always 0 means exit. Now, what that exit is, you're going to have it in front of it. You're going to have a constructor that accepts a title, the constructor of the menu. It has a title, exit option, indentation, and size. With that title string, you will make a menu item, because menu item has a constructor that accepts it, right? And then you're going to have another one for the exit. So that is defaulted to exit. So if they don't mention it, it will be exit. And the prompt one is always a greater than sign. So you don't need to initialize that. The indentation is defaulted to 0, and indentation size is defaulted to 3. So that's how your menu item is created. Okay? So somewhere over here, I'm saying a pointer array. Did I? Yeah. So you are creating an array of menu item pointers, which means, and the maximum number is the maximum number over there. So you will have an array of menu item pointers, not menu items, which means that, and they're all going to be null. And the maximum number of the menu items is the size of the array. So you may have 20 over there, but it doesn't mean that you have 20 menu items. You have 20 null pointers. As the menu items are being added, one by one, you allocate a dynamic menu item, and you add it to the pointer array that you have. And the number of the number of menu item object attribute will be increased as you do that. So using that, you can track how many menu items you have and how you want to show it. We call this insertion operator in OOP244, but that's really called the left shift operator. But anyways, the insertion operator that you have, you overload it. That's not for printing. You overlay that one to insert a menu item into menu. Got it? You do that one to add a menu item to the menu. Okay, this operator should get a constant character pointer, and when it receives a constant character pointer, using that, it builds a dynamic menu and menu item and adds it to the array. It dynamically creates a menu item, sets the level of indentation and everything it's supposed to, store the menu item in a menu pointer array. It increases the number of menu items to reflect the addition, and returns the menu again to create cascade. So in one line, you can add 3 menu items to it if you want to. Okay? So you can have menu M, and you insert option 1, insert option 2, insert option 3, semicolon. 3 things will be added to it. Follow the constraints to make sure everything is set. So ensure that the number of menu items do not exceed yada, yada, yada. If the array is full, the operator should not add the menu item or increment or do the increment for the number of menu items. Okay? Now, if you see I'm not mentioning print an error message, don't. From IPC, we learned that there's an if statement for validation. When it goes on, I print something. That's not the case. You don't do that. Sometimes you silently ignore. You don't do anything. You just check and validate. Okay? So follow the instructions exactly. Don't try to play it cool and say, when do that, I'm going to print a message. You don't do that. You don't print anything extra. You follow exactly as what it does, if it doesn't ask. All right? I have to fix this, or increase. every time I do it, I have it or increase menu item number. Anyways, I'll fix that later. Rule of 3, copy assignment should be explicitly prevented, so you cannot copy a menu to another menu. Because you did that already for menu items, automatically this won't be able to get copied. Okay? But do it anyway just for documentation purposes. So make it in a way so everybody knows it won't. When as an attribute of a class, you have a class that cannot be copied, that class cannot be copied either, because if it wants to get copied, the attributes must get copied. And because they're prevented, then this cannot. So select essentially does this. It displays the title, displays the menu, displays the exit option, and selection prompt and everything, and it returns user selection. So essentially it displays the menu and everything and waits for the user to enter the value. Obviously, it has to be a foolproof one. The foolproof data entry is not tested in Milestone 2. It's tested in final Milestone. So you may get away with it over here if you don't do foolproofing. But I suggest you do it so you don't have to do it last minute. Okay? So essentially, this is what's going to happen. You see that it actually displays the menu, then you select, and then it continues with that. Okay? So if you insert a menu into OStream, it should do the selection and return the selection. That shorthands it. So if somebody wants to show the menu, they simply can say cout menu and receive the selection of the user. Okay? This is not a normal insertion operator that returns OStream. Okay? So the operator should handle the output to an OStream when OStream is cout, and you have to make sure it's cout to do this. Otherwise, you don't do the selection. If somebody wants to save a menu in a file and print it later and give it to the customer, they don't want selection happening. Okay? So depending on what, you have to make sure that OSTR is cout. How do you check it? Exactly how you check when you safeguard the operator equal. How do you check if it's not the same object? You check the addresses of the two, right? Why you're looking at me as I'm talking some language that you don't understand. When you are doing assignment operator overload, you do a self-check. You say this not equal to the address of the other, correct? It means you check the addresses of the two objects to see if they are the same or not. To see if this is cout or not, you check the address of OStream and make sure it's not the address of cout. If that's the case, they are not the same. But if they are, it means it's cout. So please, okay? You need to do that. And then after you do that, you invoke the selection and you return an integer. So it can be done that way. If the OStream is not cout, do not perform the selection operation and simply return 0. So again, that's just to print the menu without getting any selection, if you just want to print it. So you have utils module, and you have few stuff in the utils module that you can use. Okay? Utils module, you do not need to cite. Things that I put in utils module. I put functions over there to ease your work. Okay? You do not need to cite them because they are given to you by the project. But if you are taking any of my code from my class notes and you are putting it in your workshop, in your project, to submit it to me, you have to cite it. This code is taken from this lecture from Vardad's notes. Or not me, you can get it from another prof, so I don't care. That you don't, your mark will not be reduced on that. If you get the code of your professor that is taught somewhere else, you can freely use it, cite it, you're not going to lose any mark over it. You can even get the code from your friend. You can cite it and give it to me, and you will lose only mark for that and nothing else. Okay? But if you do not cite even my code from my lecture notes and put it over there, if you do not cite it, that's plagiarism. Careful. And we are serious about the workshop. It's not about the project. It's not like workshop that you just do it any way you want. Okay? With this one, you have to be careful. All right? So that's the utils module. Oh, I think I'm asking you to write these. I don't remember. Anyways, look at let me just take a look at it and see. Let me look at the code to see if it's given or not. I don't think it's given. I'm asking you to add it into the utils module. Let me just check that. There's nothing in utils? Oh, okay, so you have to write it then. My apologies. I thought there was something in there. Yeah, so yeah, you're writing it. My apologies. So you are writing that get int and the other one. Let's come back to MS2. Come back to MS2. Yeah, so you're writing a foolproof get int that receives you're writing a foolproof get int that receives an integer, and it must be only an integer and nothing else, which means these are the things you are checking. First, you're checking to make sure an integer is entered, which means when cin is reading it, it is 1, 2, 3. It's digit, starts with digit. Then after you validate that, you have to make sure no garbage is coming after. So if somebody enters 1, 2, 3, and then ABC after, that's still invalid. You have to make sure nothing comes after. And you have to check using peek function, P-E-E-K function of cin. Look at the stuff that is coming without reading it. So when you do a cin, when you're receiving a cin, if you do cin.peek, it looks at the next character that is about to come from the keyboard without taking it out. You have to, before reading the integer, you have to peek. If what's in there is \n, it means user just entered, didn't enter anything. If that's the case, we must tell them, hey, you must enter a value. Just don't leave it like that. And also, if it's empty input, if it's empty characters, they put 50 spaces and hit enter. So that's the thing. You need to. So if user presses enter without typing anything, display this. Non-integer, display that. And if there is something after, you print that one, say only integer. Min-max calls the previous one and checks the limits. So get in min-max uses the previous get in, receives the valid integer, and then checks if it's between boundaries. So it's a very short function. You just reuse your code from the other one. So yeah, you use the other get in to get a valid integer first, then you check the valid integers to be between min and max inclusive. And if that everything is good, you return it. Otherwise, you're going to say invalid value, and you do it like that. Okay? And that's it. Again, if any of these code that you're receiving, you're getting from my notes, I have written these codes somewhere sometime, I don't know. If you see stuff like that and you're using it, fine. You have to cite it. Remember that. Okay? Otherwise, just write it yourself and don't worry. It's an easy thing. It's a good practice. Remember, if you don't do these things yourself, when it comes for the test, you have to do it on your own, so you're going to be in problem. And that's that. And this is the test that you're issuing for it. So essentially, when the program runs, three years later, it goes like this, and you enter these values in it. So it's going to be 1, 0, 2, 2, 0, 0, 0. Done. Okay, that's going to be the test that you're running. But I encourage you to do this too. This will be tested in milestone 6. Okay? Milestone 6, milestone 5. Why did I say 6? I have to fix these things, man. Anyways, in milestone 5, or in 5-6 actually, not 6. It's in 5-6. In the 6th submission of milestone 5. Milestone 5 has 6 parts. The last one is foolproofing. So this is going to give you 10% for your project. If you don't do foolproofing, you get 90%. Okay? So you run this, and you'll see what happens. So essentially, let me see if it actually works with this one now. So if I run it one more time. Seriously? Okay, there we go. So enter. You must enter a value, ABC, valid integer, 1, 2, 3, ABC, only an integer, -1, invalid value, 4, invalid value, 0, and it goes out. If you get this, it means you're good to go for milestone 5-6. Okay. You want to take a picture, you let me know, so I'm going to come beside it and pose. All right? Okay, and that's that. Any questions about milestone 2? Okay. The question was, are we using milestone 1 going to milestone 2, or it's fresh? Never. It's always based on the previous one. That's why it's called a milestone. Yeah, you take the code for milestone 1, and you make the class private. You add the forward declaration. You add the friendship to it, and then you continue. It is in the same file, and unlike all the other things you have done, menu.cpp has 2 classes in it. Why? Because one class is owned by the other. That class is not a standalone class, therefore it doesn't have its own module. Does that make sense? Yes. Oh, so it was provided? Did it have? Yeah, you can add those things to it. Of course, yeah. Yeah, anything, because the reason that we are not providing utils anymore and we give you on milestone 1 is that you may add your own stuff to utils. And by all means do. Any code that you want to add that help you to reduce redundancy of coding, add it to your utils. Utils is included in all of them. You're supposed to do that. Okay? All right? Any other question? Any other question of milestone 2? No? We're good? All right. So now, let me save this.